Amen. Okay, so if you want to turn your Bibles to Proverbs 31, we'll be there in just a minute. The 6-year-old Johnny and his 4-year-old sister Susie presented their mom with a Mother's Day present, a small house plant. It wasn't the finest looking house plant by any means, but they had bought it with their own money, and it thrilled Mom to death that she got this. So she was hugging and kissing on her children and telling them how much she was grateful for them thinking about her, when Johnny said this: "There are some other flowers we wanted to buy for you, but we didn't have enough money." "Yeah," said Sister Susie, "they had a real nice bunch of flowers at the shop we wanted to buy. But I love this plant," Mother said. "I know, Mom," said Johnny, "but these flowers would have been perfect for you. They were in a wreath, and they had a ribbon on them that said, 'Rest in peace.' And you're always asking for a little peace so you can rest." Oh well, maybe they didn't quite understand what that meant, but they had the right idea, right? Give Mom some rest and let her have some peace. Well, it is Mother's Day, and one of the great passages in the Bible that applies to mothers so well is Proverbs 31, starting at verse 10. So let's read it together. Now, the New American Standard says an excellent wife. The King James says a virtuous woman. Both have the right idea. So let's think about both thoughts. An excellent wife or virtuous woman, who can find? For her worth is far above jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. She looks for wool and flax and works with her hands in delight. She is like merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. She rises also while it is still night and gives food to her household and portions to her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. From her earnings she plants a vineyard. She girds herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She senses her gain is good. Her lamp does not go out at night. She stretches out her hands to the distaff, and her hands grasp the spindle. She extends her hand to the poor, and she stretches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She makes coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the gates, and when he sits among the elders of the land, she makes linen garments and sells them and supplies belts to the tradesmen. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she smiles at the future. She opens her mouth in wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household, and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband also, and he praises her, saying, "Many daughters have done notably, but you excel them all. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her the product of her hand. Let her works praise her in the gates." So, 6-year-old boy was separated from his mother in the grocery store. And he began yelling out frantically, "Martha! Martha! Martha!" And that was his mother's name. And she came running quickly to where he was and said, "Honey, you shouldn't call me Martha. I'm your mother." He said, "Yeah, I know, but the store is full of mothers." And certainly our world is full of mothers, and we got a great representation of mothers here today. And no one's mother is like anybody else's mother. Everybody's mother is the best mother in the world, right? That's the way we feel, and that's the way it should be. So, we've read this passage from Proverbs about the virtuous woman or the excellent wife, whichever translation you choose to take that from. But do you know that actually there was a woman who taught this? A woman taught this. Now, if you open Proverbs, it says King Lemuel. And actually, we don't know of any King Lemuel in Israel, ever. But it says that his mother taught him these things. Who in the world was King Lemuel? I'm not certain. But Jewish and Christian writers, theologians, all seem to think that Lemuel was another name for Solomon. Because Lemuel literally means devoted to God. Well, Solomon was devoted to God. I mean, yeah, he went astray, but David and Bathsheba devoted him to God. And so it seems that Bathsheba is the one that actually teaches this idea about a virtuous woman or an excellent wife. It seems like what she was really trying to teach Solomon was what to look for in a wife as we look at this. And so let's take a look and find out what that woman, that virtuous woman, that excellent wife is supposed to look like. Now, we're not going to take it apart verse by verse. We'd be here all day if I did that. And we don't want to do that because we know you want to celebrate your moms today. And you're doing that by being here in church with her today, and we appreciate the fact that you're here with her. But as we look at this, as we look particularly there in verse 10, it says, an excellent wife who can find, her worth is far above jewels. Think about her character. Her character. Virtuous. The meaning of the word virtuous could be like two sides of a coin. One side of that coin would be the power of mind. That would be her moral principles and her attitudes. The other side of that coin would be the power of body, her potency and effectiveness. And these traits seem to be very beautiful in the mind of the person who spoke these words. And so let's think about it. A powerful mind. What exactly? Her moral strength, her internal qualities, that teaches her not to give up, not to give out, not to drop out, not to quit short, but to move forward to the goal. Those qualities listed there in those verses from 10 to 31. Pure, in verse 10. Honest, verses 11 and 12. Industrious, that's 13 through 19, 21, 22, 24, 27, 31. Thrifty, verses 14 and 16. Strong, 25 and 29. Kind, 20 and 26. Wise, 26. And holy, in verse 30. Those are the powerful mind, those mental strength, those internal qualities that keep her going. But then the powerful body. Let's think about the powerful body. How on earth does this woman do all the things that God desires of her? So her life requires a physical vigor and energy. She's industrious. She has to have some physical strength to go about the work of her love. So what qualities are portrayed that display that here? She works with her hands, verse 13. She plants a vineyard, verse 16. She makes her own clothes, verse 19. She works early in the morning and late at night, verses 15 and 18. She nurses the needy, verse 20. She's never idle, verse 27. So how on earth can one woman be all those things? Well, you have to cultivate that desire. You have to give it time. Time for reading and memorizing God's Word. Time to be with other godly women, to learn from them. Time today. It's your day dedicated to God. So take time today to think about God and what that means. Take time over life. You don't become this woman all at once. It's something you work for over your lifetime. But that's her character. Well, what about her hands working? Okay? A little boy got his first job. Well, I guess a teenage boy got his first job. And he was boasting about the amount of work he had to do and the fact he had to get up at 5 a.m. to eat his breakfast. So he was asked, well, does anyone else get up at 5 a.m.? Oh, yes, Mom gets up and fixes my breakfast for me and my dad. Okay. So what about your dinner? Oh, Mom fixes that too. Right? Well, does your mom have the afternoon to herself? Oh, no. She cleans the house, looks after the other children, fixes supper for me and Dad when we come home, and then we watch TV before we go to bed. But what about your mom? Oh, well, she's usually washing some clothes and ironing for the rest of the evening. Do you get paid? Well, of course I get paid. Me and Dad both get paid. And what about your mother? Does she get paid? And the boy said this. Mom get paid? Why, she don't get paid. She don't do nothing. Well, think about all the things he just said she did. You know, Mom's work sometimes just goes unappreciated because she does all those things and nobody ever thinks about those things because Mom takes care of it. Mom's always working behind the scenes, making sure we have everything we need. That's Mom's job. But the Proverbs 31 woman shows that mothers do all kinds of work. You know, verses 13, 19, 22, she selects wool. She works with her hands. She brings food from afar. She provides food for her family. She plants a vineyard. She gets up while it's dark to prepare food. Her lamp doesn't go out at night. Verse 27, she watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. She isn't lazy. Mom is always working. So how can she do so much? And verse 17 says she girds herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She girds herself. Now that's a phrase we don't think about a lot today. But in Bible times, women wore long flowing robes. Men did too. And when they went to do physical work, they had to gather that up and tie it up with what they called a girdle. We would call a belt. They called it a girdle. So she girds herself. Well, what this does for the modern day woman is it describes the attitude towards work. She had to get herself ready to work. And girding that long robe up gave them freedom to move so that they could do their physical work. But this girding action was the trigger in her mind to encourage her to get the task she had to do done. So with strength, physical strength and endurance, and she makes her arms strong. The contemporary English version says she always works hard. She's physically able. And of course, doing all the things that she does get her arms strong. But in order to do that, you need 4 things. The 4 things you need are commitment, willingness, motivation, and discipline. Okay? You got to be committed to get the job done. You've got to be willing to get the job done. You got to be motivated to get the job done. And you have to discipline yourself to get up and do it. Those things, that's why Mom's not idle. She's not lazy. She has these 4 things. You've heard that phrase, a man's work from sun to sun, but a woman's work is never done. And how true that is. Moms have so much to do to take care of their families. And that's important that that gets done. But also, let's think about this. Her mouth speaks. Her mouth speaks. In verse 26, it says, she opens her mouth in wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. One time, the great English preacher, G. Campbell Morgan, and his 4 sons, all became preachers, were all together at a family reunion. And someone asked one of the sons, okay, which Morgan is the greatest preacher? And the son responded without hesitation, Mom. Mom, let me tell you what, my mom did a lot of preaching to me in my lifetime. Your moms have probably done a lot of preaching to you too. And, you know, you think about the wisdom that they shared with you. You know, so often we think, oh, Mom, that's old-fashioned. We didn't want to listen to it when we were younger. But as we get older, we find ourselves repeating those same things, don't we? That wisdom that's been passed down from mom to the next mom to the next mom, all through the years. James 3:2 says this, for we all stumble in many ways, and if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he's a perfect man, or perfect woman in this case, able to bridle the whole body as well. Moms know how to use their tongue and how to control the tongue, are a great blessing to their family. So think about it. Her work is easier than it is to speak with wisdom and kindness. Jesus said, the good man out of the treasure of his heart brings forth what is good, and the evil man out of the evil treasure brings forth what is evil, for his mouth speaks from what fills his heart. So what our words come out of our mouth says a whole lot about us as a person. So we have to be careful about our words and make sure we have beautiful speech. So how do you do that, moms? How do you have beautiful speech? Well, there's 2 guidelines you need to remember. This one, speak only if the words are wise. And speak only if the words are kind. My mom used to always say, your moms have probably told you too, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. Right? We've all heard that many times. So those 2 rules, plus I would add one more. Think before you speak. Because once that word comes out, you can't take it back. Think before you speak. So if something happens to make you angry, don't fly off the handle. Hold it. Think about it, because Proverbs 15 verse 1 says this: a gentle answer turns away wrath. Harsh words stir up anger. You want to make your children angry? Well, speak to them in anger. You'll make them angry. You want your children to respond in kindness? Think about a gentle answer. How can you say what you need to say in a gentle way? Make all the difference in how your children respond. All right? And then add sweetness to your speech. Proverbs 16:21 says, the wise in heart will be called understanding, and the sweetness of speech increases persuasiveness. You know? You want to persuade? Well, think about being kind in what you say, being wise in what you say, being sweet in what you say, and then speak with authority. Doing all of that, people will listen a lot quicker. Not easy, but it's the way God says we need to talk. But then think about mom, and think about the fact that her heart loves. Her heart loves. Verses 11 and 12 says, the heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of his life. Why? Because she loves him. All right? Gene Barron wrote a story in the Reader's Digest years ago. But the story is still so true. She lived in an old mobile home. And she was always embarrassed when her son would bring his friends to the house, because it was an old mobile home. They didn't have much, you know, and he would bring home some friends that were, their parents were very wealthy, and they had everything they wanted. Not just what they needed, they had everything they wanted. Her home was sound but meager. But one day, she learned that one of her son's friends, one that had everything, committed suicide. And she could not understand why a boy that had everything would commit suicide. So she asked her son about it. And her son responded and said, oh, Mom, that's easy to explain. He said, you know, here in our house, we have lots of love, and we don't have many things. In his house, there was lots of things and not a lot of love. You see, it's not the things that the kids really want, Mom. They want your love. They want your attention. They want your time. Those are the things that they want. And those are the things that will make a difference in their life. So love is a basic matter of the heart. Mom has to care. She has to care about the needs of her household. She has to give time to her children. Mom needs to be focused. All right? Beautiful moms that this proverb is describing have one focus. One focus, and that is to raise their children in the love of the Lord. The mother of Dr. Harry Ironside, who was a famous preacher from the 19th century, would pray each night as she tucked him into bed this prayer. Father, save my boy early. Keep him from desiring anything else rather than to live for thee. Oh, Father, make him willing to be kicked and cuffed, to surrender shame or anything else for Jesus' sake. And he became one of the great preachers of the 19th century. But mothers also plan. They plan for the presence of the Lord in their house. They plan to pass their faith on to their children and grandchildren. They plan a pleasant atmosphere in the house. And notice, ladies, your job as mom is never done. It changes over time. But you will, if you are a mother, you will be a mother until the day you die. Your role changes over the course of time, but you always are mom. So don't forget that. You have a responsibility, even to your adult children. You have a responsibility. And finally, we call her blessed. Verse 28 and 29, her children rise up and bless her, her husband also, and he praises her, saying, many daughters have done nobly, but you excel above them all. Moms need to be praised. They need to hear that praise. So, let me share some quotes with you from some famous people that praised their mother. President Abraham Lincoln said, all that I am or ever hope to be, I owe to my angel mother. President George Washington wrote, my mother was the most beautiful woman I ever saw. I attribute all my success in life to the moral, intellectual, and physical education I received from her. President Andrew Jackson wrote, there never was a woman like her. She was as gentle as a dove and brave as a lioness. The memory of my mother and her teachings was the only capital I had to start life with, and on that capital I have made my way. Booker T. Washington said, in all my efforts to learn and read, my mother shared fully my ambition and sympathized with me and aided me in every way she could. If I have done anything in life worth attention, I feel sure that I inherited the disposition from my mother. And Thomas Edison said, I did not have my mother long, but she cast over me an influence which has lasted all my life. The good effects of her early training I can never lose. If it had not been for her faith in me at the critical time in my life, I should never likely have become an inventor. So what is it you would like to say about your mom? Now, of course, we don't have time for everybody to stand up and say what you want to say about your mom, but it might be a good idea just to write that thought down, and instead of just buying some kind of Mother's Day card, make your own with that thought of what mom really means to me. And cherish your moms. You know, this is the first Mother's Day I don't have one. But I'll never forget her. And what she taught. Because something else comes in with that. Proverbs 31:30. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain. But a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. That's the key to being the mom that Proverbs 31 describes. Fearing the Lord. So, what about you today? What does the Lord mean to you? What relationship do you have with the Lord? Or is there a decision you need to make for Christ today? If so, won't you come while we stand and sing?